Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Molly and I'm really glad to be back. It's been about a week since I posted. Life has been really busy, but I wanted to show you what's growing in my garden, do a bit of a harvest, and just kind of talk about the vegetables that I'm growing. So that's going to be today. Then the next video will be all the flowers that are blooming in my yard in August. And then the next one will be all the herbs that I have. I have about 20 herbs, maybe a little bit more. But we'll count them and see how many I have and show you what you can do with them. So I am really excited. It's getting late in the day yet again, which is the way I usually do things. So let's get started and show you what is growing that's edible in my yard that can be harvested today. Now I think the way we're going to do this so that we can save time and not have a hugely long video is quickly go through all the vegetables that I'm going to harvest. Then I will harvest them and show you at the end exactly what I have. But first I want to do a little bit of a taste test. Now I'm also going to put a link for some of these vegetables and plants that I have done videos for previously. And this one, this gigantic plant right here, it's a lot bigger than the ones I grew last year, is a pineapple ground cherry. And let me show you what they look like. So you have to wait. This is what the unripe pods look like. You have to wait until they turn brown and fall off. And nicely, I don't have to dig all the way through. There's one. Oh, no, actually that's a pod. That's a husk from yesterday that I harvested. So let me see if I can dig all the way through to the ground. Find one that's fallen off, because that's how you tell when they're ripe. Now here's one that's not quite all the way ripe, I think. You have to pop them out. And as you can see, this one's still a little bit green. Let me taste it and see what it tastes like. Actually, that tasted really good. Let's see if there's another riper one. Now here's one. You can see that the husk is a little bit more brown. Sorry, it's having a hard time focusing. Let's hold it this way. There we go. It's really wet because we've just had a lot of rain, and it's been wonderful because it's the first rain that we've really had. And if you look at it, well, it's split a little bit because of the rain, but it's a little bit more orange. Let's taste this one. Oh, that's fantastic. So I'm going to harvest a bunch of these in a little bit and then show you how much I get at the end. Now the next thing I wanted to show you that I'm going to harvest, if you look back here, we finally have ripe Hemrod grapes. They are so good. They're finally ripe and they've turned sweet. So let's try one. Okay, if you look at this, it's a little bit translucent and it's squishy. Oh my word, and perfectly sweet. We're going to harvest a bunch of those. It's just about time to start making raisins. That's one of my favorite things to make with these grapes. So this is a Hemrod, and we have 5 other varieties that are not quite ripe yet. Next, we have our poor pathetic strawberries. They are actually starting to produce strawberries, but they didn't grow like I wanted them to this year. So I'm hoping if I fertilize really heavily next year, get rid of the massive pineapple ground cherry and see if we can give them a little bit room, that maybe they'll grow better next year. But we do have strawberries to harvest, so I'll show you how many we get off of this. It's not going to be many. The other plant that's just been steadily producing, enough for just a few handfuls, well, not even a few handfuls, maybe a handful a day, is my raspberry. This is one of them, perfectly ripe, absolutely gorgeous. This is an autumn Britain, and it's an everbearing, so it bears all throughout the year. That is also good. We've got kale that can be harvested, but we're not going to harvest much of that today. And some Swiss chard that is looking gorgeous, but we're not going to harvest much of that because I like to harvest it just before I'm ready to make a meal out of it. And I'm not quite ready today. But if you look down here, we've got some carrots that are ready. So those are looking really good. We're going to harvest some carrots. We've got some beets, not very many, but we've got some that are ready. And a plethora of cherry tomatoes. These are my sun sugar. And look how gorgeous that is. Absolutely gorgeous. And probably the best tomato out there. Now, I definitely need to restake this. It's taken over my path. I can't get past, so I have to go through the garden. But it's got so many tomatoes on it. I'm going to get that restaked in a little bit. Next, and I don't think I'm going to harvest these yet, we've got kohlrabi that's just been really weird this year. This is a late planting of it. It's finally starting to look like it might be harvestable. But we're not going to harvest that yet. We're going to let it continue to grow. We also have beans that have not yet produced any flowers yet, so no fruit yet. No beans yet, but it looks like it might be getting close. This last cabbage is finally starting to head up, but it's getting some insect damage. That's just one that never quite, it was planted the same time all my other cabbages were planted, and those were harvested months ago. Well, maybe a month ago. This one's just really slow. I've got my glorious sunflower that's going to be on the flower tour. We've planted a few more beets and chichimisai, which is an Asian green, and that was in one of my last videos. More beans with no beans on them yet, but I'm hoping for some soon. Corn that's not ready at all yet, but it's getting huge. We've got tomatoes, definitely several ready to harvest. I don't know if I'm going to grow Roma type tomatoes anymore. They have ended up with blossom end drop really badly. We have a ton of peppers. I've already harvested most of my bell peppers, but we're starting to get new growth, new peppers on it. As you can see, there's one. They are so good. I'm not usually a pepper lover, but these were so sweet and so mild. I really liked them. And they're huge. But we're getting peppers all over through them. So I'm excited about that. My poor little jalapenos got smothered, but they are producing like crazy. This one back here, let me show you this one back here. About 2 weeks ago, I went and bought some peppers from Walmart. They had no fruit on them. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, dang it, I broke it. Okay, I broke it. But anyway, this had no peppers on it 2 weeks ago when I bought it at Walmart. Put it in the ground, didn't even skip a beat, and started producing a ton of peppers. My banana peppers are out of control. I've got to harvest those. And I put in one paprika this year, and it's looking really good. Let's see if we can see the red. There's a couple of red ones down at the base, but anyway, they're gorgeous. My Chinese mountain yams are out of control. They're doing really well. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until next year to harvest these. These supposedly grow tubers underground that you can use, and they grow tuberals or something like that. I can't remember what they're called, in the leaf nodes that you can harvest and treat like potatoes. So I'm just going to leave these in the ground, let them continue to grow, and see what happens next year. I've got one more sun sugar that's not producing as well as the one down below, but it is still producing quite well. I think this one gets a little too much morning shade. And then we've got my peaches, which are nowhere close to being ready, which they usually are ready September. I've got another one over here. Hopefully I've pruned this one Hopefully I've thinned this one enough it doesn't break any more branches off. This one breaks branches off every year, no matter how much I thin it. And then we've got my nectarine. This is usually ready before the peaches. It's not quite ready yet. We've got my Jupiter grape that's not quite ready. It's starting to taste pretty good, but it's not quite sweet enough yet. And then we have my Cannabis grapes, which are almost at the peak of perfection. They're still just a tiny bit tart. Let me taste one and see what this one tastes like. There's the color, gorgeous color, kind of squishy, kind of juicy. Let me taste it. These are some of the best tasting grapes ever, but they're still just a tiny bit tart. I like them a little bit sweeter. And these, you can see more over there. I make raisins out of these also, and they make the best raisins in the world. And the next thing that needs to be harvested, well, not all of it, just some of it, is my Rosa plum. It's loaded with plums, and if you have not had a Rosa plum, you are missing out. These are some of the best plums ever. I usually harvest them right when the birds are starting to eat them and when they've fallen on the ground. There's a few on the ground over there, but we might find a couple that are ripe. And here's a really nice one. Let me taste it and see what this tastes like. This tastes so good. I absolutely love it. So we'll harvest a few off this. It still just has a few more days until it's at the peak of ripeness. Now let's come down here to my other gardens. Things in this bed are growing really nicely. The carrots, the beets. They've got a ways until they're ready though. We've got some kale and some chard at the end that are starting to ripen. And then look at my squash. Oh my heavens. If you saw the last video, this is a huge difference. They have grown so much. The rain has helped. I have been spraying for squash bugs. And then look at this in here. I harvested the biggest ones yesterday and they're still out of control. That's my crookneck squash. Let's see if we can make it through to my other crookneck squash. It's getting harder and harder. Don't want to squish the vines. There's more crookneck squashes in there. Now these are not ready yet. But as you can see, there's quite a few, and those are just the 3 that we're accessing right now. This is acorn squash. We've got another acorn squash down here. And this mass of vines is my butternut squash. Let me show you what these look like. There's a baby one. They're all throughout this area. It's another baby one. And there's a big guy right there. My pears are just about ready. I'd say they've got probably another 3 weeks or so. And I hardly have any apples because it overproduced last year. But there are a few on there getting ready to get ripe. And my cucumbers all of a sudden exploded. We don't have any ripe ones yet, but as you can see right there, we've got the female cucumber buds. We've got the female cucumber flowers getting ready to produce. And it's taking over my roselle. My roselle does not have any buds on yet. I'm not sure when it actually produces, but we'll see if it produces this year. You can see my cucumbers are out of control. I'm going to have a lot to make pickles with. So I showed you what I'm going to harvest. Let me get to harvesting because we don't have a lot of time to do this, and show you what I end up with. So here's my cherry tomatoes. Some of them actually split, if you can see, and that was because of all the rain that we got. They went from getting a moderate amount of water to a ton of water all at the same time, and it just split them. So we've got cherry tomatoes. Let's go get the other stuff. So we got a couple of beets and some carrots. There we got. There's my carrots. They're pretty good. Excited about this. Here's my tomatoes. This is the Black Seaman. They can get pretty big, but we got some small ones too, and they've got a really good berry flavor. These are the Jet Star. They are really disease resistant, taste amazing, and they made some really excellent salsa. This is a nice looking San Marzano with a little bit of grass on it, but it's a San Marzano that did not have blossom end rot. And then, let's see, this is what they look like with the blossom end rot. So now let's harvest our peppers. Here's my banana peppers. Look how big that one is. These make fantastic pickled peppers. One of my favorite things to make. I'll probably make some tomorrow or the next day. So once again, it's getting too dark to film, but here is my harvest. My 5 strawberries are buried under all of those magnificent ground cherries. The beets, the carrots, cherry tomatoes, peppers. All those grapes are fantastic. So once again, I hope it's not too dark to see my face. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock. I got my harvest done. Now to get ready to go preserve some of my food. So there was a garden channel that talked a little bit about a challenge that they had heard about last year that they had participated in and didn't post last year, but decided to post this year. And I cannot remember what that garden channel was, but I will post it at the bottom. I'll see if I can find it. But the challenge was to preserve a little bit of something from your garden every day. Now, I work full-time. I work from a regular job from 9 to 5, plus I do landscape design after that, and then I also do my YouTube channel. That is why sometimes the YouTube channel is a little sparse. But I always find time to use at least a little bit from my garden. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to preserve something every day, but I am going to be able to use something from my garden every day, even if it's a little sprig of basil, 1 tomato, maybe a bite of chard. So I challenge you, if you have a garden, to go out and try that and see if there's something in your garden that you can use. Maybe you can pick a flower and put it on your table. Maybe you can pick a bunch of flowers. Harvest some carrots or some beets. Make a salad with your lettuce, although it's a little hot for lettuce right now unless you have a lot of shade. But go out and try and use something from your garden every day. I'm going to talk to you a little bit, maybe in some other videos, about what I do to preserve. So far this year, I've dried cherries. I have done a lot of pickled peppers, made some salsa, and I'm getting ready to do grapes. So I've done some preserving so far. Oh, and my basil. I do go and cut back my basil and dry that, quite often, like once or twice a week. So there are definitely things you can do. I'm going to show you some shortcuts you can take and some quick ways of doing things so it doesn't take too long, because I know a whole day of cooking in the kitchen just to preserve some food sometimes is not very appealing, especially after a long, long day of work. So I'm going to show you what I have learned to cut the time down on things and to be able to actually do something with your produce. So I'm excited for these next few videos. Like I said, the next one is going to be the flowers that are blooming in my yard, and then the one after that is going to be all the herbs that I have and how I use them. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I challenge you to get out there into your garden, plant something, harvest something, use something, and have a wonderful garden-wise adventure.